Hi, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today we're working on our AZURE project again. And this block we're working on today is called number 74, Rising Sun. And it's a cute little block that has what appears to be a rising sun coming out of one corner of the block. And we're going to get started on that right after this. Well, welcome back. And the great thing about today's block is that we've got all of the subunits put together. And working on this, now of course these were pretty easy. They are just flat blocks with angles like we've done before. And they're going to be assembled like this. And we're looking at this diagram here. Let's see if we can get that a little bit closer. That might be just a little bit too close. Okay, there's a little bit better shot for you, a little bit closer. We're working on Rising Sun, and here is the A and B sections. Which one is which? This is the A and this is the B. And of course it's going to be backwards from what we're looking at, which really confuses the heck out of me. But anyway, that's what we've got going on. Now, what we need to do today is we need to hook these two pieces together, and that's just going to be a straight seam. That'll be super easy. And then we're going to put this piece on this join piece, and that's where we're going to run into any problems, if we have them, is sewing that curved seam. Now you'll notice there are a lot of little pieces of thread on this, but you'll notice that this section here, this is the CD section, it already has one arc on here. And I recall in doing this that was a little bit cumbersome to do, and I think I had to take it off a couple of times to get it as close as I was looking to see it that way. So we may encounter the same thing again, but we're going to just take our time and go slow because we really truly only have two seams to do. And I think the other thing that may help us is right before we get ready to sew the arc onto these pieces we're going to join is we're going to do some paper clipping. And I think that will help us manipulate those seams so that we get a better fit. And also, if possible, I'm going to try to give you a little bit closer angle at how those are sewing together, so we'll see how that works out as well. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to hook these two pieces together, and they call this the A section to the B section. So we're going to start by our normal technique of matching the points in the corner. We're almost there. Okay, there we go. So we've got that together, and then we're going to take another pin and we're going to do the same thing down here on the inner seam point, and we're going to come out right at the end. So we've got those two together. Let me grab a couple of clips. It looks like all my little plastic clips are with another project right now. So if we line those two up and get it straight, we're going to hook those two clips here. And then we're going to put a pin in here. And I find that when you're working with this paper, it can be challenging, but doable. And then we're going to put a pin down here. All right, so let's get started. Now for this project, we're using a regular straight stitch in that 2.4 length, which is a close stitch, but it's, well, but it's not a really close stitch. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go down to 2. And then that will allow us to get that, what would we call it? The paper off of the seam allowance. And you know, I'm going to back this up just a little bit. I want to change out my foot. I think we'll have better luck using a foot we don't have a guide on and we can see through a little bit better, because we can certainly sew down a printed line. We don't need the seam allowance for that. Okay, so we're going to go at 2, and we're going to start where those lines come together in a point, and we are going to do a little back stitch. Remove those clips because it will push us out of our sew line. Remove that clip. And we're only going to sew to the point on this inner section because we don't want any over sewing to interfere with putting that arc on. Okay, so we've got that seam sewn right there. Let's see how we did on the back side. We are on the money. So let's take a moment to do a little bit of trimming right now, because when we put that arc on, it's going to be a handful. So let's eliminate some of that hassle now. Okay, I'm just folding it back out. Seam ripper in hand, we're going to take out the basting stitch on one side. That's probably the easiest part of this because that stitch is so large. It's easy to put that seam ripper right on the paper and pull it out really quickly. Okay, so we've got that. And let's see, we've got a little bit of a stitch underneath that's holding us. May have been from one of the other pieces. And we're going to see if we can pull that paper right away. Okay, that's looking good. Sometimes it's just the getting it started. Okay, we've got all of that out. Let's do the same on the other side. And we're ripping out that large basting seam, not the finished sewing seam. And sometimes they'll join together. No worries, we'll come back to that section if we need to. And we are going to have to pull that out. So what we'll do is we'll bend it back so we can catch only the basting seam and not the stitching seam. Okay, and same thing with this. We're going to see if we can't rip that out. Okay, so we've got that out. Let's see where we are now. Okay, that looks really good. Now the other thing we're going to do is we're going to try to take out some of this paper right here near the seam line into that curve area. We don't want to take it all out, but what we want to do is we want to try to make it lay down as much as we can. Okay, so see how I've taken that out? And then here we want to preserve this seam line for the arc. So I'm going to cut it like right there. just the paper, and then tear it back. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to take out just a little bit more down here. Anytime you're cutting, make sure you've got just the paper. That's our basting stitch there. Okay, so there we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and press this and maybe even add a little bit of starch to it so we can preserve that nice curve. We're going to rely on that curve to match up. And we don't want to do anything that's going to distort it. And having that seam there could distort it for us. So I'll be right back after I give this a quick press. So I've got a nice crisp and firm piece of fabric without it being inflexible because of paper. So we've got the paper lining all of the arc seam line, but we've got some flexibility. Now, what we need to do, let's move some of these tools so we get a little bit better idea. We need to join the outside to the inside, and that's going to be just like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the center of this and the center of this, and I did mark that earlier, but what you would do is you would fold it in half, matching those points, and get your center. So that is right here. And then the center of this is right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to match those up on that seam line. Okay, we've got a match there in the center. They're loose. They'll go all the way around. Right sides together, they're matched. Now, in traditional sewing, what you would do is you would match the outside and then halfway in between each piece, or more, depending on the size. And then you would start on one end and sew to the other end. What we're going to do is we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to sew from the middle to the outside. So if I place this fan-shaped piece with it matched up here, matched up, and it's even all the way around, we're going to pin that in place here in the middle. Okay. So we're going to put our needle down here, and we're going to sew to the outside, and then we're going to take it out. We're going to do the other way. And what we need to do along the way is just keep matching that seam. And what I've checked is to make sure that the paper is all cut right on the dotted line. So what we're going to do is we're going to match up the outside line as close as we can and see if our seam lines match when we finish. Now, doing it this way, I'm going to up my stitch size to 2.2, because if we make a mistake and we have to take it out, that 2 or that 1 is going to be a real challenge. And with this foot I have on here, I can see right where that needle is going down, and that's going to help me. So needle down, press her foot down, and I'm going to take 1 stitch, and then I'm going to back stitch. And we're going to do this really slow because we want to take about 2-3 stitches, adjust our fabric, repeat that until we get to the end. So I've done that 1 back stitch, and I'm going to adjust it, and I'm going to take 1, 2, 3. Press her foot up, adjust that paper, 1, 2, 3. Adjust that paper, Oh, that got a little fast on me. And it's going to start wanting to cup on me a bit. Now that sounded like 4, but it was really 3 because the first stitch didn't really go anywhere. Do it again. And then this time we're really going to have to pull on it. Okay. Every 3 stitches we're stopping and we're readjusting. I think I'm going to do 2 here because it's getting harder to pull that paper around. It's stiff, remember. I have a feeling we may be off. Okay, we're to the end. We're going to do 1 backspace. Well, we did 2. Sometimes you think you're doing one thing and the machine is actually doing something entirely different. Okay, so what I've discovered is on the top, we're right on the line. Good as gold. On the bottom, it starts slipping off about 1 inch from the end. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take it out from that point and restitch. And I want to try something. Okay, so we've taken out about 1 inch or so. I want to try clipping this corner as we get here. And what we'll do is we will put this here so you can see it. I'm going to put a pin here on the end and have it come through on this piece. So we've matched those up. Okay. Now, can we do that? That's a great question. Let's see if we can manipulate this paper. What we want to do is we want to get these lines straight. And we're going to need a clip for that. We're close. We're not quite there yet. Okay, there we go. Now we're seeing where we should be. Okay. All right, so we've got that lined up at the end. We've got some clips in place. I think what we're going to do is we're going to clip this underside as well, because we need some flexibility. About every 1/4 inch or so, we're going to clip a few clips. And that really straightened that out a lot. Let's do 1 more clip down this way. And 1 here on this side. And when we do the other side of this arc, we're going to clip there too, because I think that may be the secret to getting this to fit properly. Okay, now since we've matched up that corner, we're going to start in the corner. Why not, right? I just stuck myself. And we're going to have a lot of little pieces. Okay, let's start from the outside this time. Do 2 little back spaces. And now this is fitting together more like a straight stitch, a straight line stitch. So we're just going to come as far as we can. And that should match up. And it does. And back space where they match together. And let's see what we have. We're good there. In fact, we're looking really good. And looks really good on the other side too. So let's take our pen out. Now remember, we only have half of this done. But what do we have? It's still not matched. What a challenging piece. So that's all going to have to come out, but I think you can see how good the art looks. It's just not matched up. And it looked like it was, and I think it slipped. So let me try that again. Okay, reset, we're going to do this again. And I would just want to take a minute to talk to you about problems when you have them and you're sewing on quilt pieces. Now for me, it could have been really easily solved by just deleting that whole section where we sewed it and it didn't come out right, taking it out of the video entirely, and then just starting fresh so you never knew what was going on. But I think it's important to see that everybody has problems when they try to do something for the first time or the second or maybe even the third. And some techniques are harder than other techniques, so it's really important that you understand that and not get too terribly frustrated. It's very easy to get frustrated when things don't go well. What I've done is I've taken the pieces entirely apart and I pressed them and gave them a nice little starch so they're not stiff, but they are they're not rigid, but they're a little bit stiff because they've got the starch in them. So that will help us to match them up, but they're flexible enough because we've taken some of that paper out that they should be a little easier to sew. And then the other thing is I've clipped both this arc and this arc about, I would say, bigger than 1/4 of an inch, but smaller than 1/2 an inch. So we've got a nice flexibility that we can stretch this as needed for both of these. Now this one has had its paper removed in some areas, especially here where we had the seam, but not in others. So we're going to start it over and we're going to do the same concept again. I think the concept is great. We just ran into problems with the pieces not working well together. And I'm trying to think, what should we do? Should we do the little one on top? I think we need to do the big one on top so that we can adjust that one. Okay, so we're matched there in the center on the seam line. And then I've got a pin holding the pieces together. Let's try it again, and let's look at what kind of feet we have. Maybe we have something that would work better. I think this might be the best one we've got right here. Okay, let's take that out now. And we're going to come in right at that center on that seam line again. Now remember last time we lined it up so that the outside edges were together. This time we're going to make an attempt to line up seam lines as we go. I don't know how well that's going to work. Let's start with that outside point, because that's where we got hung up before. Trying to stick myself again. Okay, there we go. Okay, that lines up our pieces. So let's try this again. Basic technique. We're going to do 2 stitches and we're going to adjust. Oops, it was 3. Back on track. Okay, we're running into this last little part of the arc, and we want to make sure we've got it still matched up. I think part of the problem is all this paper. So we're going to come in here, see if we can remove not much, but okay, I think we've got the outside line lined up. I'm going to put a pin in that now. It's amazing how quickly it can come apart and move on you. Okay. I'm going to have to hold it right there with that one finger because it seems to be the only way we can make it work. As we get to the end, we're just kind of going on faith a little bit. We're just going to sew off the end because we really don't know if it's matched up or not. Okay, so what do we have? Oh, we got it matched on the end. We look like we've got a pretty good arc there. We got it. Okay, so now we're going to start and we're going to go the other way. And I think that the way we're going to do this is we're going to start from the end. So we'll match up those pieces like we did before. It is hard sometimes to keep track of what you're doing, what I'm doing, and what you're seeing, because they don't always match. Okay, we're gonna clip that so that those are together. And then we're going to pin it. And you have to be careful when you pin that you don't pull it out of alignment. Okay, we've got that. So now we just need to match up this with this. And I can kind of see, we've got a little bit of a cup here, but I can kind of see how they are coming together. So we're going to try this. We're starting from that outside point this time. We did do a little back stitch there. And I'm going to kind of keep track of where we are here in the center as we sew this. Lift and pivot. Look where we're trying to match to. It looks good from the top right now. There's our match point. We're going to go over it and just do one back stitch. Keep your fingers crossed, everybody, that we got it this time. Clips off, pin out, and the moment of truth. Oh yes, we are close enough to call it done. We're just a little bit off here, but I think we can make that happen. I'm going to run to the iron and press this a little bit so that we can see what we're doing, and I'll be right back. Well, as you can see, I took a minute to take some of the paper out of the back of this design because that paper was causing it not to flatten out appropriately. And when I did that and took it back to the iron with a little bit of spray starch, I was able to put it together, and you can see that there are no little puckers or pleats or even little tucks in here. This is all laying really nice and flat. Now, all the paper isn't out, but a lot of it is. I'd say probably 70% of the paper is out. So it looks really nice. We've got nice edges here lining up. So that's going to work out well. The seam lines are a little bit off for our finished block, but I think we're going to be able to put those together really well, because when you look at that, let me grab, here's a 6.5 inch square. This one is a little bit smaller than that, so we're going to have to use as much of the block as we can. But I think we can do that and still come in really well. We can just stitch that as far as we can over here on the edges and have it good. When you have a block that's got a lot of pieces and it's got some little tricky seams, sometimes your block gets a little bit smaller. And I don't know that I would let that worry you a lot. The secret is just going to be when you sit down to do it that your blocks are trimmed up so that they're all the same size. Or if you have one, maybe one that's a little bit smaller, see if you can't take just a little bit smaller seam allowance in it to make up the difference. For this, we're going to quilt it on top, so as long as we're catching those seam allowances in the quilting, that should not be a problem. You just want to make sure that you don't get them too small and they begin to fray. And on this one, where you would likely have a concern about fraying would be here if you did not get it on the stitch line. But I think in our situation, we've got a nice wide seam allowance there. And even with the clipping, I don't know if you can tell, but the clipping is only to the seam. It's not through that seam. So we're going to do, I think we're going to do fine with that. And it's a really, really attractive block. I want to make sure you get a good view of that. It's still got some threads on it, but it's a nice sharp block. It's got some really pretty angles to it, and I think it turned out really, really well. And again, this is number 74, Rising Sun. It's a cute one, isn't it? I hope you've enjoyed today's block and the way we put it together. We did experience some troubles, some frustrations. Things didn't work out the first time we did it. But just take a breath and look back through it. Try to figure out why it wasn't working and try it again. The worst thing that can happen on this is you have to cut it again and start over. And really, it's a 6-inch piece of fabrics. Even though it's got lots of pieces, it's only 6-inch square. So if you had to redo it, not a huge loss. And what did we learn in the meantime? We learned that we really can't sew curves to join them. We have to put that clipping in there when we have the paper on the back so we can manipulate it and get it to fit properly. The paper is great, but it does get in the way when you're trying to do some of these really quirky seams. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next week here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.